Welcome to a new series onto the channel called The Aftermath. Well, I say new series, it was a series that I used to do sometimes when a lot of events happened and the same at West Ham, and I'll just compile them together. I have slightly lost my voice still from yesterday at the game. I was at the game, obviously, we're talking about the Chelsea game. West Ham United 3, Chelsea 1. It's like an extended match reaction. Try and do this for a bit longer. Every time our game happens on the weekend, I will be doing this because I can't do it for midweek games because I don't always have the time to record these kind of videos. But let's start with the lineups. West Ham started with Areola in goal, Sufal, Zuma, Ogbonna, and Emerson as a back four. The pivot of Ward-Prowse and Soucek. A three in front of them was Bowen, Paquetá, and Benrahma, with Antonio as a solo striker. They also did a 4-2-3-1, despite them having a three centre back thing. Sanchez in goal, Gusto, who else? Disasi, Silva, and Colwell as kind of a back four. A pivot of Enzo Fernandez and Conor Gallagher. Ben Chilwell kind of playing as a left winger. With Raheem Sterling coming off the right, and Cardi Chukwuemeka playing behind Nicholas Jackson, which changed to Mikhailo Mudryk in the second half, playing more off the left, which then it changed to a back three for Chelsea. And listen, when the game started, I'll tell you about my day. I went to the Bat and Ball in Stratford in Westfield, and so I could go and watch the early game as well, the Aston Villa Everton game. Aston Villa obviously beat Everton 4-0, and I was quite nervous for the game. I didn't expect anything. But when I saw the lineups, I did actually have a feeling that we would get something. And the reason why is because, if you remember on my preview, would have preferred them to play like a back three-ish formation. Just the same formation pretty much that they had against Liverpool would have been useful because of Ben Chilwell as a winger is not really that effective, and it takes something away from Chelsea's game. And there's less attacking putting Colwell as a centre back, as a left back, and I don't think he's suited as a left back or as a centre back in a back three. But regardless, we move. We obviously, I predicted it like a couple of days ago what the lineup was going to be. It was quite obvious. If you know David Moyes by now, and David Moyes is manager your club, you pretty much know what's going to happen when it comes to who gets picked. Because Ward-Prowse was his signing, it was his target, and he likes Thomas Soucek. Fornals has been dropped off late, so it only made sense that because Ward-Prowse and Soucek shouldn't really be a pivot in general, it worked for this game. Although Ward-Prowse is not a defensive midfielder, he gives you way more than just being a defensive midfielder. But it is what it is. That is probably what we're going to line up with for a while. And Edson Alvarez obviously had the Gold Cup, so he didn't have enough time to really get some minutes, even for Ajax in the pre-season. We've come up against their right back before, Malo Gusto. He played for Lyon in the two games that we faced them in the Europa League. He actually played with Emerson and Paquetá. He played really well in both legs, and we were like, who the fuck is this right back? I've never seen him before. And he was 19, and then Chelsea got him last year, loaned him out, and now he's Reece James's backup. He didn't really do much. He was quite ineffective on the day. Him and Benrahma had a good battle. I would say it was probably one of Benrahma's especially like very quieter games. And speaking of just players in general that play for West Ham, like Fabianski came out midweek talking about how frustrated he was and how pissed off he was with him being announced as a number two because it was announced the Thursday before the weekend against Bournemouth. But it is what it is. Like Areola's our number one now, and let's analyze his performance. I just got to have a sip of water because my throat's really dry. I think Areola had a decent performance after watching the game back, and he's a better kicker than Fabianski. He's better off his line. And I'll say in general, he's just a better keeper. I think he can act. He doesn't like to catch the ball. I think he does punch it a lot, and I've seen that said before. He does like to punch it a lot. He does, but his cross collecting is actually quite good. And that's a strength. The two main strengths of Fabianski is his cross collecting and his penalty saving. Now we all know Ariana's come under criticism with penalty saving before, but he saved Enzo Fernandez's penalty. It wasn't the greatest of penalties in my opinion. I know it looked like it was going in the corner, but I don't think it was. But Ariana did well to save that. Still, you still got to be there, and that was a big game changer before going into half time because if they're 2-1 up, we'd have to open up and chase the game, or even that, or we would have still sat back and try and hit them on a break and maybe grind it out for the draw in the end. So you got to be happy that it all works out in the end. Obviously, Vladimir Sufa, right back, listen, he did not have a good game at all. He dealt with Chilwell well at times because Chilwell is not a threat unless he's underlapping, like actually running into the box, which is how he affected us at Stamford Bridge last year. And Seafeld didn't really need to do anything to like defend Chilwell, but when Mudryk came on, Mudryk was shit in terms of end product, but at the same time, Mudryk did Seafeld in because of the pace he has, and Seafield's not the greatest of pace, and he's not necessarily a reader of the game. He was constantly long balling it. I know that's an instruction, but it's not a good instruction. But the long ball is always too hopeful. He's not good in possession. I know we don't play a possession game, but you still got to be somewhat good on the ball. For me, he just gives the ball away a bit too much. And that's what he did, in my opinion. And obviously, he was in the back four with Zuma, again, and Emerson, and that seems to be the starting back four, even though there's rumours of going back into a back three, which I'm not happy about, because there's no point of us going into a back three. But Kurt Zuma obviously played against a former club. He got run ragged a bit by Jackson. That was probably one of his worst games for West Ham, in my opinion. Jackson was running on the outside of him because of his... he's not explosive, but he has quite a bit of pace. And we're playing high up with our defensive line, despite our midfield really being quite close to them, but we were still inviting pressure and being high up as well. They had pace running in behind, and we'll get to Sterling in a minute with how he played against us. But Jackson ran ragged against our two centre backs again, and Zuma, and Zuma doesn't worry me. Again, worries me a little bit. That's 2 games in a row that, despite the goal, he hasn't really performed that well. He didn't perform. He literally didn't perform well apart from his goal. He didn't perform well against Bournemouth. Solanke was getting him on the shoulder a lot, and he struggled to deal with that. And if you're going to come up against Danny Welbeck, João Pedro, or Evan Ferguson next week, which he isn't because he got sent off, but if he was, I reckon he would have struggled with that as well. It will probably be Ogbonna, which would be interesting because Ogbonna's coming to the right of the end of his career. And our centre backs ended up playing better when again got sent off, which was Zuma and Ogbonna. And when you want Zuma and Ogbonna to lock their defence up, they usually do it well together. Excuse me. And obviously Emerson also played against his former club at left back. The thing is with Emerson, he will give you like a lot going forward, but and he can defend well at times. He can. But Sterling had him on toast. Let's be honest. Sterling was class against Emerson, and I don't really understand. I didn't really understand Chelsea fans like criticising Sterling and Jackson when they were probably the best players on the pitch for Chelsea. They were probably the biggest threats. They were the 2 people I was most afraid of in attack because Mudryk wasn't going to do anything, and neither was Chilwell. Enzo Fernandez was probably maybe up there with their best player as well. But Sterling was giving Emerson all kinds of problems, especially pacing behind and taking him on, running ragged around the outside. A couple counter-attacks right at the end where Sterling could have contributed, but he didn't. It's just that a couple misplaced crosses maybe that Chelsea fans are moaning about because he's not a great crosser. And that was what he did against Liverpool. He got into the pocket against Liverpool, and him and James were 2v1ing Robertson. And also, you see Raheem Sterling at his best on the right, especially for Manchester City, when him and Leroy Sane were delivering for Aguero and Jesus as like touchline wingers and just getting them around the outside with pace. And listen, it was like the old Raheem Sterling. And I can't believe this guy is still in his 20s because I grew up seeing pretty much his whole footballing career as a senior player. And he gave us a lot of problems. Emerson got a yellow card, absolutely wiped Raheem Sterling out. I love those kind of tackles because he didn't get any of the ball he got the player, but he was probably lucky to not get a second yellow. I'm pretty sure he missed out a couple challenges. And he is a fighter, Emerson. He's proving to be an upgrade on Aaron Cresswell because neither of them can really defend to a top level, but Emerson can really give you something going forward. And I don't want to see Cresswell again, to be honest. I think we will see him again. He was on the bench, but that's also because Kera failed the late fitness test. I think that was the rumor. So, but especially on the counter, Emerson likes to run through players like a winger, and I think we saw that a couple times. But unfortunately, our wingers hug the touchline a bit too much, and Benrahma, that's not suited to his game. And Benrahma had a quiet game. He had a quiet game. There was a couple of times where he was just taking too long to shoot. He just doesn't test the keeper enough. He didn't skin anyone. He didn't take players on properly. He didn't make decisions right. It was just too inconsistent of that. He is another one with again that he didn't perform well against Bournemouth and he didn't perform well in this game. In my opinion, I'd drop him for Maxwell Cornet to try something. But Benrahma will play a role in this team throughout the season. And we know what we're going to get with Benrahma because we've seen it for, this is his fourth season at West Ham? Yeah, this is his fourth season. And we know where he is now. Obviously, we got to see a debut in James Ward-Prowse. And the thing is with James Ward-Prowse, as I said, he's not a defensive midfielder. He gives you something going forward, and he should be the Souček replacement for the future. And we knew exactly what we were going to get with James Ward-Prowse. He's technically sound on the ball. He is technically sound on the ball. There's not there's not like calling him a free kick merchant is a disservice to someone like him. And I think if you play him and Alvarez together, you've got Alvarez as the tackler. Somebody who can receive the ball and you get the ball as James Ward-Prowse and progress play. I think that's a good duo. If you guys remember when he played at Southampton, especially under Hasenhüttl, he played alongside Oriol Romeu as a pivot, and Oriol Romeu was, again, another technically sound player, physical as well, and a good stature and could take a long shot when he wanted to. So him and Ward-Prowse together was cash money at the time, and I think Edson Alvarez can be the same. But it's going to take a long time for Moyes to drop Souček again, unfortunately. But we'll get on to Souček because him and let's say Ward-Prowse, Souček makes sense as a duo. Delivery and a header in. Ward-Prowse with a great delivery for a Gerd's goal and a great ball into Mikel Antonio. He's not just a dead ball specialist. This guy can cross. He can do a ball over the top. But I watch other teams that are not just my team, and he performed very well. Thomas Souček, first half, gave away the penalty and got skinned for the goal. Gave away the ball a lot, but put in some great tackles and tried to start counter attacks. But it wasn't a great performance from Thomas Suchek going into the game. He performed really well against Bournemouth. I think we're going to hear a lot of, because Declan Rice has got, it might unlock him again, but uh, I wouldn't gas it too much. I need to see this week in, week out for you to keep your place. I think, but in my opinion, Moyes is going to give him his place regardless. He doesn't give it to players on merit. He's stubborn, so he'll wait like extra long. It took him so long for him to drop 4 from Benrahma last season and the season before. And Souček came into his own when we performed with 10 men. And when we performed with 10 men, we were just tighter. There was a fighting spirit. And Thomas Souček pulled out a worldy tackle in the 91st minute when Sterling was running through everyone. And I can't remember who it fell to, but Souček tackled. That was probably what guaranteed us the game. And that's what Souček does. I've never faulted him for his defensive work. His defensive work is class. But yeah, that's Thomas Souček for you. I think you know what you're going to get with him. He's not a great passer, so he can't pass 5 yards to save his life. And as a midfielder, if you can't pass 5 yards, I don't know what to tell you. He didn't really get in the box as much either, which is not just a fault of his own, but a fault of the whole thing of Ward-Prowse and Souček playing together. Ward-Prowse is not Declan Rice. Alvarez can be that role, but nah. Just stop playing Souček. Just stop playing Souček. I don't know why the guy's got a new contract, by the way. The guy does not deserve a new contract. We can't be rewarding mediocrity. The guy has got a new contract. If you guys didn't know, he's got a 4-year contract. That's his last big payday. But in my opinion, we should either sell him or let him go on a free, but no. Fucking signed a new deal, didn't he? That's just great. That's disgraceful. James Ward-Prowse. I've already talked about him. Lucas Paquetá played right in front of him, and obviously we know what happened in a week about our betting stuff, and it's going to be very hard to prove him guilty when it's not him betting, it's his family. People like to run their agendas, but they don't actually read properly or read the source properly. But that's Twitter. But this is the thing with I just seen Jeremy Doku to Manchester City. Here we go. So obviously we weren't going to get him, were we? But yeah, Lucas Paquetá. We didn't play the ball on the floor in the first half, so I don't really see how he could have got into the game. But I do think he was holding on to the ball for too long when he did hold on to the ball, which is something that he loves to do. But if you tell him to stop doing that, you're taking away a lot from his game, because he's one of them entertainer type players. So if you give him too many instructions, you might just lose all of his game altogether, which is something you don't want to do, because he plays football like he has fucking fun all the time. But here's the thing: in the second half, he got better, and especially with 10 men, I think everyone got better, because no one in the first half really played well apart from Ward-Prowse and Areola because of the penalty. And you could argue Emerson going forward. But Paquetá ended up becoming probably one of the man of the match contenders purely because of the fact that he was covering for Emerson a lot, and he was getting spun by Sterling a lot during his defensive work, but he's willing to do it regardless. I don't think he should have been put there really, but then again, going forward, he again holding on to the ball for too long. He likes to put his soul on the ball for too long. You can't keep doing that. Players are going to tackle you, especially in the middle, in our own half. We're just in our own half. Just don't do that. There's a bit of a shithouse. Gets himself yellow carded. Gets Conor Gallagher into trouble. Gets Jackson yellow carded, and gives Caicedo a nightmare. The guy was even talking to him. When I watched the game back, he was talking to him. The guy was getting into his head. He was getting into his head. he was playing mind games with Caicedo, and obviously he was going to take the penalty if Benrahma wasn't there. And I had no doubt in my mind that he would slot it home. But the only criticism I'll say about his penalties is that he goes the same side all the time. He did the same with Genk and Leeds, the other two penalties he's taken. So he's going to have to probably switch it up now and then. But also, he played really well in the end and ended up dancing his celebration. He looked fucking exhausted when he was celebrating. But he ended up doing a lot of dog work, especially in the second half when we had 10 men, which is going to be a theme for my next two players especially. Well, maybe not Antonio. Jared Bowen, quieter games up until 10 men. Like, he didn't really do anything, to be honest, when we had 11 men. Didn't do anything at all. Quiet game. But against Chelsea, he always tends to try and rise his game up, and that's what he ended up doing when we had 10 men, because when Antonio had to come off, Antonio was exhausted. Bowen was scrapping, and I think Moyes wants to play him as a striker because he's scrapping like Antonio. And he probably sees that in his game, and he's good at converting wingers to strikers, but we probably do need a striker. But not only do we need a striker, we need our wingers to supply the ball into our strikers, and we need a striker that can suit the Antonio role, which is a 1 in a million thing. And Jared Bowen, listen, when we went to the 4-4-1 formation, he actually did quite well. He was giving defenders ragged. He was linking up with Pablo Fornals very well. And all it was missing was a goal to confirm the win in the end. Listen, Mikel Antonio, like, we didn't really give the fucking... I know people said he was anonymous in the first half. We didn't give the fucking ball to him in the first half. Like, just kept long balling it. He's not good in the air. I would give you that, like, in terms of, like, ball in the air. He's not going to go up for the head. He's not good. He's not Andy Carroll. He can't do that. He's not necessarily the tallest either. The only time he's good in the air is when the ball's actually going into him from across, which is something he's improved on over the years with his heading ability. When we had 10 men, he couldn't really give us much off the ball because of how tired he was anyway, how much he worked. He scored a brilliant goal because gave Colwell and Disasi some problems. And Thiago Silva does not like coming up against Mikel Antonio. Like, every time he comes up against him, boy, gets bodied, when he gets spun. And that's Thiago Silva. That's an elite centre-back. That's someone who's still performing at his age, like 38 or something. But Mikel Antonio did a job on him, in my opinion. And all credit to him, man. People said his head was gone. He wants to move and all this. Oh, yes, he wants to move to Leeds, doesn't he? He wants to move to Wolves. He wants to move from... I get if you want to move to Celtic. I get if you want to move to Saudi. Those were the rumoured clubs. But obviously not. Listen, I keep him as a squad player. But we can't keep relying on him week in, week out, can we? Let's talk about the 3 substitutions that came on. Angelo Ogbonna obviously had to fill in for Nea Faguer when he got sent off. And Ogbonna, when he told Uncle Ogbonna to lock it up in defence, that's what he does. He was very excited for one of his headers. That he was so excited he nearly ran so far forward. I was like, get in your position. But I love it when defenders and goalkeepers, like, they do something good and they get really excited. But yeah, well done to Ogbonna. Solid performance coming on, and he will probably play against Brighton. Edson Alvarez, yeah, I think I was excited when he came on for James Ward-Prowse. Tackled everyone. Literally tackled everyone. This guy is a anchor in midfield, a ball winner, a legend. He's going to be... everyone's saying that he's going to become a West Ham legend. I really hope so, because... listen, the guy didn't even have any minutes or any training apart from this week, and he performed spectacularly as a substitution. And all credit to him. He can fill in at centre-back, he can play midfield, and he's going to be a key player for us in Europe. And when you play at Ajax, you've got to be somewhat good at the ball, even though the standards are higher there when you're playing at Ajax, especially on the ball. But I think him and the other substitution, I'm going to talk about Pablo Fornals. You guys know my opinion on Fornals. Overrated, but I know what his qualities are. Pablo Fornals covered the ground of an attacking midfielder and a right winger at the time. He was everywhere. And you have to be everywhere when you've got 10 men. But that guy, he's one of the best players in the world at seeing out a game. I said it in my match reaction. He's one of the best players in the world at seeing out a game. And boy, did he do that. Boy, did he do that. He just covered so much ground. And I said man of the match to him. And that's not discrediting Ward-Prowse, Ariola, Antonio, and Paqueta, because someone corrected me on Twitter. But he just put a fucking shift in, and that's what you got to do when you're seeing out a game, sitting back, 10 men. And we gave Chelsea problems. And David Moyes ended up getting it spot on, despite my worries and my nervousness throughout the game. So credit to Moyes. And we go into Brighton next week. Obviously, transfer news and all that stuff as well. That is it for the first aftermath of the season. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are new. Social media is in the description if you want to follow me on the email for the inquiries. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.